Our next guest is a former UFC light heavyweight and Strikeforce middleweight champion, a Sherdog Hall of Famer, and a legend and pioneer in MMA. He joins us back on the program here today on his birthday of all days. So we're very lucky to have Frank Shamrock back on Submission Radio. Frank, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Happy birthday, Frank. Tell us, how's it been so far? What's planned for the celebration?
Well, I'm having dinner with my family, and so far I have hiked with my dog and taken a series of phone calls and a small nap.
Sorry, you have what with your dog?
I took a hike. I live in the mountains, so I hike about every day with my dog.
Hike. Right.
Well, me and Casper were talking about this before, Frank, and it may be the toughest question that we ask you for the whole interview, but what's been the best tangible birthday present you've ever received? Before you finish the answer, I just want to tell you my favorite present was the combined Christmas birthday present I got when I was a young man, a Nintendo 64 with 2 controllers many moons ago. When you think back to your favorite birthday present, what stands out to you?
It was a bike when I was like 11. That I just so wanted, like mongoose, trick bike. I was all into it, and yeah, we didn't have a lot, so and I always got gypped because my birthday was right before Christmas, so I was totally not expecting it, but wanting it more than anything, and I got it, and it was like the best ever. Like I still go back to it. Yeah.
Do you still have that bike? Is that what you just said, Frank?
No, I wish I did. I'd have kept it because I'm like a closet hoarder. I'd totally kept it.
I wonder what happened to that bike now, where that bike is. I feel like every bike has like a tragic story. I know all my bikes either got stolen or destroyed. Do you remember what happened with that bike?
It's like Bobo from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
I think I got like the opposite happened. I probably got like locked up, and then it probably got like given away to probably some other kid who hopefully needed it or deserved it or whatever.
Wow.
But yeah, but I like to think that bikes go to like the next kid, and then they just sort of ride off on them.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Now, we haven't spoken in a while, Frank, so we know you've been getting more and more into producing and acting. Give us the breakdown. What projects have you been working on lately?
Well, the latest one, I have a TV show that I'm still developing, actually 2 of them. But the latest one is a film, which is a biopic on mental health, which I've been really, I just left Canada doing one of the biggest and final scenes, which was pretty hardcore. And then my other one's a TV show that I'm doing, which is an educational series on medical cannabis. I'm doing a whole TV show on it.
That's fascinating. I mean, both projects we want to ask questions about, but I want to ask about the TV series first. What exactly, what sort of the structure of it? What kind of stuff will people be able to find out about marijuana when they watch it?
Well, our whole thing is the kind of re-education. Because, in our country, we kind of went askew on the medicinal side of it and the educational side of it. So ours is purely educational. We just want to share with people what the new technologies are, what the new information is, what the new science is out there. I'm a scientist, and I've seen it, and I've seen the ability for it to heal certain ailments that are specific to our human being. And I think it's super important that people have this education, information, especially if they're going to consume this medicine or plant.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I can't wait for that to come out. What about the mental health one? Because over here in Australia, mental health has been such a major issue for young people. There's a lot of homeless issues due to mental health here in Melbourne and across Australia. And it's something that the government's been trying to tackle for quite some time. It's sort of the elephant in the room with a lot of issues around the world. Talk to us a bit about the mental health project that you're working on.
Yeah, sure. It's a biopic, so it's about a famous celebrity who, has been struggling with mental illness and in particular, bipolar disorder, and has really wanted to do something about it, but hasn't had a chance. Partly because of their career and their life, and then partly because the stage has never presented itself. So I just got dragged into this couple of years ago in the midst of this project that has just turned into a very courageous and powerful story. But it just gives hope because it still is a stigma. People still have a stigma about mental illness. It's still misunderstood. And, in America, it's really coming to light. Like it's a lot of, public awareness of it right now. And then, we have a terribly broken system for caring for our mental, it's really become hospitalized and, institutionalized, and it's really gotten away from what, people need the most, which is personal care and, intimate connections with human beings and, working on their selves. And so it's been a really cool journey. And I think we should hit the market mid next year, hopefully in May, which is Mental Health Month. And so it's pretty cool. And I'm not a film producer. I just get dragged into these crazy things. And then because I know how to build things, I do it. But the whole journey has just been really powerful and really brought to light what is, it's a human ailment. It's ridiculous that we're not, addressing it head on and talking about it.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely fascinating. Just, I don't know if you're able to disclose this yet or not, but who's the celebrity? Can you share that with us at this moment?
I can't tell you, unfortunately. So
we'll just have to wait till May next year, I guess.
And just wait.
Well, look, Frank, it's been a crazy week in the MMA world, and we want to grab your thoughts on a few big stories over the last few weeks. The first is the Mixed Martial Arts Athletes Association, which is headed by Bjorn Rebney, Tim Kennedy, GSP, and others. Just curious, what was your reaction when you heard about it, and do you feel they can make a difference in the landscape of the sport?
I hope so. But it just seems like a little too late. Like we kind of missed the boat. But I'm hoping that one or whoever organization gets organized and make some sort of position. So I think I got to think it's progress, but I think it's when I look at businesses, this industry rolled up. This industry's done.
Wow, okay, well, there's a lot of questions there. What do you mean by too late? Because I think for a lot, obviously people have been wanting this for a long time. It kind of seems like later is better than never. And also, what do you mean by this business is rolled up? What do you mean by that?
Well, it's like, we go into industries, we buy the whole industry, we roll up an industry. The healthcare, this industry has been completely dominated and monopolized and then monetized, and is now it's just a broken sport. Like it's all messed up. So I think a fighters union is entirely needed, but it was needed 5 years ago, when this thing was going through that structural change where that thing was super, super important. And now I think they're going to have extreme difficulty gaining any ground. But I think it's good news that they're doing it, and I'm supporting all of it because I think it's progress.
Because you've always been a big advocate of seeing growth and change in the sport and things like the Ali Act. How do you compare sort of these efforts of the Mixed Martial Arts Athletes Association to those of, say, the MMA FA or the PFA? And do you think it's a bit of an issue that there's now multiple major groups independently working towards a similar goal instead of together?
Yeah, it's the same problem. It's good intending people that, they're not all united and, working in one unison. But things like the Ali Act, will change the structure of the sport. But, the UFC worked really hard to dominate and, create a sport that was, run in a very specific fashion. And it was not to help, it was to help the athletes in performing, but it was not to, line their pockets. It was to build a brand. It was very strategic. But now you got a sport that's run from top down. The athletes are not educated about real management because they're not encouraged to. The whole thing is, it's still ancient in nature, although it looks like a $4 billion sport because, someone's paying $4 billion for it. But it's not, Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing, the last generation of fighters, such as, the Mark Coleman's and the Don Fryers, sort of struggling in retirement after the MMA careers have finished. You've done well and have a great business, but how important do you think it is for fighters to have a pension or a healthcare to fall back on?
Oh, it's so important because these guys are going to be jacked. They're going to be all crippled and broken up, and and I think it's going to move forward. Some of that's going to happen. Everybody's on it now. And it'll all move forward. But I think it's going to take a long time, much like it took a long time to get us to this state, which is, I was saying this a decade ago, like, hey, guys, I don't know about this. You can't just, give all the power away and then, let them control everything. But, it is what it is.
It's interesting because obviously the MMA Athletes Association is still quite new. A lot of people calling up, finding out information about it, and you being an advocate for change and all of that. Do you think there'll be a point where you'll get on the phone and talk to someone from the Fighters Board to find out more information about it, or do you think you may be involved with them if they approach you?
Perhaps. And I'm kind of moved on, sadly, to other industries like television, film, and charity work. Like if I go back to my statements, it's been rolled up. When we identify an industry that we want to control and unify or consolidate, we buy it all, we redirect it, we rebrand it, we re-chi it, and then we sell it for more money. That's what happened to MMA. I was unnecessary and unsupportive of the UFC's chi. So I got, pushed aside and devalued in my journey. So I've moved on to the next thing.
It's interesting because you were at that point in MMA where you helped Strikeforce pretty much become the powerhouse that it was and a huge name in the sport. When you look back, are there any, I suppose, hesitations or any moments that you wish you would have sort of done something different? Possibly you could have shaped the future of MMA if you had taken some other opportunities or jumped on board some other sort of bandwagons, because for a long time there you were sort of one of the bigger names that really helped develop a lot of things in the sport of MMA.
Yeah. I've looked back at it, and my only regret is I always wished I could do more, or had hoped I could do more, because it did so much for me, really, coming from where I came from and, the life that I had. So I felt a huge obligation to the sport and always, put it up there with providing for my family and, taking care of my health. But I just got disillusioned from it. I realized that, the business is the business. It's tough business. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of players. And you have a limited lifespan on your body. And, at the end of the day, I'm the one who cares the most about me, my success, my body, my thing. And I didn't want to, hang out and work with people that didn't care as much as me, much the same as I do in my businesses now. So I just kind of got disillusioned by the sport and the experience. And, I love it. I want everyone to excel in it and do well in it. But if you go back and just read the history, you'll figure out exactly what's wrong with it and what needs to change. And it'll all work itself out. But it's going to be a long, arduous journey.
If you sort of had to pinpoint the point in your career where you became disillusioned with the sport, do you remember what it was?
Yes. I remember the moment where I decided I was going to stop fighting. I think I was disillusioned before that. But it was just before my daughter was born. I think I was fighting Kung. But it was just, I realized that in order to achieve my goals, I'd have to be really, downright dirty and mean on the negotiation table, and, to do things I wanted to do. And it was just, I realized that I don't want to do that anymore. I'm beating people up is enough. Now I got to chop their heads off in a boardroom. And, it just got, when I realized it was getting, so much bigger, and, there was so much at stake, and the rules were changing, it became less of an art and of interest to me.
Mm. We don't really hear about any sort of health issues related to yourself. Like we mentioned, you're doing acting and producing, and you don't sound like one of the, some of these other guys that are struggling, after such a sort of long and successful career around the world. Just wondering though, Frank, how does your body feel on an everyday basis?
It's pretty jacked up, but all of the stuff I have healed. I mean, I broke my foot on Tito, blew out my knee for Baroni, broke my hand on Nick, or whatever his name was. So cumulatively, I've damaged a ton of things, but I've been able to fix them all. So my only reoccurring health problem is I'm stiff from all those twistedness and a few surgeries and torn tendons and all that stuff. But I've had a broken lower spine since I was 16 years old. So mine was a ticking time bomb. Every time I went out there, every time I trained, every time I got fatigued, I lacked spinal structure in my lower spine. So it's the same now as when I was 16, only now I'm older and I feel like I've been hit by a train in the mornings. But if I hike every day, if I keep my core strong, if I eat well, if I sleep well, I think I'm a pretty normal 44-year-old dude.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the dog dragged you out of bed and makes you go for hikes. I mean, that's so awesome about having a dog. Yeah. So what's your dog's name, by the way?
You got to go twice a day.
What's your dog's name? What kind of dog is it?
He's an American Pit Bull and a chocolate lab, and his name is Shadow. He's a rescue, and I got him at the pet store. I walked by. He was the biggest dog we've ever seen in the smallest cage, and he was so frightened that we took him home. Oh. And then he was scared of his own shadow. So that's how he got his name. And he has since blossomed into the sweetest, biggest, like 85-pound dog. And he's just so nice.
Wow. Well, me and Casper, we got a Milo and a Winston, and Casper's got a Yancey, so we can all bring our dogs together one day and go for hikes all together. But let's talk about something else in this crazy world of MMA. I mean, you were a massive superstar in your day, and nowadays we have a new superstar in Conor McGregor, who sort of brings us to an interesting point in the sport. I mean, a lot of people are looking at the power that he has in the company of the UFC, and the UFC getting to a point where they may not have a choice but to co-promote with him because he has that much draw, that much power, and he's such a huge star. What are your thoughts on Conor and what he's been able to achieve in the sport? And do you think he's earned some kind of share in the company for all that he's done?
Oh, 100%. And I think he should exercise it until he gets it. I mean, that's what I did. So that's how I'm chilling and hanging out, enjoying my life. I was able to break my contract and, took equity in Strikeforce, launched that, and sold it back to him. So there's a million ways to get paid. But when you have as much power as him, this is when you do a power move, like I did, and walk away. Like, see ya, good luck with your promotion. We know how it works out for you.
Wouldn't that be a crazy situation? I mean, even recently, I was going to say, fans were a little bit disappointed when the UFC stripped him of the featherweight title and gave it to Jose Aldo. Not sure if you've been following the story, but, what did you think of the way the UFC handled that situation? Do you think it took any power away from him?
No, not at all. I just think, they will slowly try to chip away at his, stardom. But, he's a product of this environment, where the job is not to create stars. The job is to create a brand. And if a star is created, you just control them as much as you can. But then that makes the star want to leave and do all this other stuff. It doesn't, it's not good chi. He wants to be part of the, the winning team. He wants to be compensated. So, I think he can do that if he does this strategically. What I did? I was like, all right, well, good luck. I retire. And, I had the foresight and the, legal representation to make sure that was in my contract. So, that just doesn't exist anymore. That door has been closed, but there's other doors.
Yeah, that's
power. He's the only star I know. Him and Ronda. They're the only people I know in the UFC. And besides Rogan and Goldberg.
Yeah, and they may be on their way out as well. I'm just curious. You mentioned other doors.
They're gone. So it's like, who's hanging out? I don't know any of these people. And I think that's
Bruce Buffer.
Where the power comes. Yeah, that's where the power comes to Conor.
I'm curious. You mentioned other sort of doorways. If Conor McGregor, he listens to this show every week, definitely. But what would be some other options? Do you think he'd have to sort of escape the situation and do what you did?
Well, I would have a serious sit down with, continuing on. Because the way the promoter does it is they try to stretch you. Well, we just won't let you fight because you're under exclusive contract, so you get old, everyone will forget about you. But he has the type of stardom where he can walk right into television and film and keep that level of stardom growing. To where then the UFC, much like the WWE, when The Rock got so big, they'd have to acquiesce on their model and come back and say, well, let's be partners then. Let's hang out. Let's figure out a way to get you back in here to make that money we were all making, before. Mm-hmm. It's just money. It all comes down to money. But you got to take a chance. I think this is his chance. If he wants to make, Mayweather money, you got to make a Mayweather move.
Yeah, speaking of Mayweather, what did you think of Conor McGregor getting his boxing license pretty much immediately after being stripped of the featherweight belt? Do you think it's a way of him sort of sending a message to the UFC? And do you think we're any closer to actually seeing him fight Floyd Mayweather or, at least taking a boxing fight?
Oh, I don't think Mayweather's ever going to accept it or allow it to happen, because that would be silly and too much money at stake.
Why? You don't think Mayweather would want that fight? Why? Why wouldn't he want that fight?
It's no win. It's a no win. Mayweather's got $500 million in cash. He's not going to go, wrestle around with Conor, who's, God bless him, does not have $500 million in cash. It's not the same league. It's all posturing and promotion from the McGregor side, because it's smart, and it's what I would do, and it's what smart people do to control the marketplace. But it's not reality, because Mayweather's people are never going to let it happen because of the value of contests. They don't equal the same. Revenue streams aren't the same.
You don't think they'd make a lot of money off it, though? And obviously you know more about the subject than I do, but you don't think it'd be a big fight? Or sort of Mayweather could still get a lot out of it? Obviously, he'd be coming there, setting the record for most wins, beating Rocky Marciano. Wouldn't he stand a lot to gain from that? And obviously, it'd be boxing, so theoretically, he'd have a lot of, advantages there.
I think he'd have only to lose. And, if I were Conor, I'd just kick him in the head and, pocket my $25 million.
No, but
it's never going to happen.
It'd be a boxing fight. He wouldn't be able to kick him. It'd be boxing rules.
Right, but he would get annihilated in boxing. It's a different world and universe. When you crawl at 5 and you start boxing, it's just different. I wanted to be a pro boxer, and it's different. I'm not Conor McGregor. I'm not a super athlete anymore, but when I was, it's a 30-year study to get those feet and that understanding. And I don't think it's comparable, although I've never watched McGregor box, except for in MMA. And, we still suck at boxing in MMA, So...
Yeah. I see what you're saying, Frank. Floyd getting in that ring, it would be boxing rules, but you're saying who knows what Conor McGregor would do. Whatever he does in that ring, all eyes would be on him, and there's no guarantees on the Floyd Mayweather brand, is what you mean.
Financially, it makes no sense. I tried it with Mike Tyson back in the day, and it's like, no, the money revenue on either side they're not even close.
I'm curious about that. I don't think I've ever heard that story before. So you tried to fight Mike Tyson back in the day. How far did the negotiations go, and what exactly happened?
We got to the table with his manager, which he then told us some terms which were way out of my league and what I wanted to do and everything. It was one of those Floyd Mayweather moments. I was like, all right, this. I'll continue forth.
and
when great idea. I thought, hey, it's perfect to elevate everybody. But we were on different playing fields. He was Mike Tyson. I was Frank Shamrock in a burgeoning, young sport where he had everything to lose. So to me, it's the exact same situation. And if I were on the other side, I'd be like, you ain't fighting that crazy Irish, Scottish dude, whatever he is, madman. Makes no sense. But who knows? And it's a great story, and I love it, and I hope he keeps doing it, and I hope it moves the needle, and I hope he uses this leverage and opportunity for something important, like making a statement or supporting one of these leagues or, at least, putting himself in a position where he can, decide the game and how, what he wants to get out of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you blew my mind with this Tyson thing. I just want to ask a couple quick questions. When exactly in your career was this, and was it boxing rules, or were you guys negotiating some kind of mixed rules? How exactly was the plan to get this going?
Yeah, the plan was mixed martial arts and all of that. It was when I was 97, 98. I was superstar. Just after, it was just after I retired from the UFC, because then I was a free agent. So I was out moving the market. And, it didn't go like I thought. It was like, no, it'll be boxing. It's X amount of million. We want this much. And I was like, oh, okay. Thank you. It was a lesson.
Wow. I'm just wondering, how interested was Mike? Obviously, you wanted the fight, and obviously that had certain terms, but how interested was he actually in the fight? Was it a case that he wanted to fight you and it was really just came down to the contracts, or what was the story there?
Don't even know. I never even met him on that occasion.
Oh, wow.
So I don't even know. It may have never even got to him. I've only met him socially a few times, but I never brought it up because I thought it would be weird.
Mm-hmm.
But from that point, it was literally sit down. It was like a 7-minute meeting. I was like, oh, wow. All right. Thank you. And then that's why I believe this, there's a disparity here. I don't think it's going to be made up in the short term.
Wow, how about that? That would have been unbelievable. I had no idea that happened. Frank, you continue to surprise us. From what I read about you in Chris Jericho's book to this, you got your hands in a lot of different pots. Let's get on to just what's been going on with something that fans have sort of approached us about over and over and over, and no doubt about it, they'll ask us about this after the interview, and that is your relationship with the UFC. I mean, fans have wanted to see you get inducted in the Hall of Fame for years, and disappointed year after year because obviously you mentioned the cheat is not there between you and the company. Is there still any kind of chance that it happens in the future?
I mean, I'm certainly not closing the door. So, but I don't really care. Nobody's, beating down my door and asking me to do it. And I live a pretty good and full life. So I hope it happens, for everybody, but I'll be okay either way.
On that note, as we let you go, for all the fans listening, if it's not the UFC Hall of Fame, tell us what else is coming up that they need to be looking out for in early 2017. You mentioned, obviously, the great bioepic. You mentioned the TV show about medicinal marijuana. Anything else that the fans need to be checking out that we haven't covered?
No, I'll be in Texas in mid-April to do some public speaking. Other than that, you can check my website or my Facebook page at Frank Shamrock. I'm always hanging out there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really interesting stuff that you put up on your Twitter page. You mentioned you got the 2 projects coming out, and there's a lot of interesting articles, so people need to follow you on Twitter as well, at Frank Shamrock. Frank, I mean, it's always such a pleasure and such an honor having you on the program. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your birthday to spend some time with us. I hope you enjoy your big dinner tonight, and we'll have to talk to you again in May when these big projects come out. I can't wait to watch them. It looks like still a lot of big things ahead from Frank Shamrock. Thank you so much for coming onto the program.
Right on. Thanks, guys.